I am Jen Hoffman from healthymoving.com, and I thought we could do a little live chat today about sleep, particularly about falling asleep when we need to and staying asleep throughout the night, and then the most important one, waking up feeling rested and having the energy that you need to get through the day. So I'm going to share with you one of my favorite breathing practices, but I also have some other tips that I think a lot of us don't think about very often when it comes to supporting good and healthy, restoring sleep that I also want to share with you. If you know someone who has sleep issues, I would love it, and I'm sure they would appreciate it if you would share it with them. Thank you so much for helping to spread the word. I'm going to make sure, let me pull up my screen here so that I can make sure I can see comments from anyone who's watching live. Feel free to comment and ask questions as we go. But I thought we would talk about this really in 3 parts. First of all, the breathing practice I'm going to share is what to do when you're lying in bed and you need to fall asleep, but you can't fall asleep. So this is either when you're going to bed at night or when you've woken up in the middle of the night and you're trying to fall back asleep. I also use it with my kids when I'm trying to help them shift down at the end of the day. So for parents, you can let your kids mirror you as you do this. But the other 2 things I want to talk about are a couple of things related to your pre-bed routine. So before you're in bed, but in the evening hours, that maybe some people don't often think about. And then what I know I rarely hear people talk about with regard to sleep is what you're doing all day long that can help you get a good night's rest at night. Because it's not just what we do right before bed, but also what we're doing throughout the day that impacts our ability to get a good night's sleep. All right, so let's do the breathing practice first. This is you're lying in bed and you want to fall asleep, or you're with your kids and you're trying to help them shift down to get ready for sleep as well. So when you're with the breath, when your exhale is longer than your inhale, it's quieting for your nervous system. But the opposite is true. When your inhale is longer than your exhale, it's alerting. And the easiest way I can think to remember this, to share with you, is that if you think about someone who's getting ready to jump off of a high dive, or to chop a board in karate, it's a big long inhale, right? Like, yeah, and a quick exhale. They push the air out. Same thing on a high dive, and then jump in, right? So this is really about doing the opposite of that. And if you think about like when you see a baby, like, oh, it's a quick inhale followed by a long exhale. But just trying to change the inhale and the exhale can be a little stressful. Like, trying to make your exhale longer, when I first tried it, I was like, at the end, and I would feel like I was trying to push out air that wasn't there. But the simplest tip is to change the way you're pushing the air out. And you can do it in one of 2 ways. You can imagine that you're pushing the air out through a straw, and especially if you're teaching kids, then it can help them to actually use a straw. But I like to do what we call in my house with my kids the snake breath, or as an adult, I call it the S breath. So you inhale normally, and then you exhale the sound And just by changing that simple thing, making the sound S as you exhale through the mouth, you pretty naturally and without a whole lot of stress or discomfort lengthen the exhale. If you're laying next to somebody in bed and you are worried that they're going to be disturbed by your sound, then you can do the straw imitation. So you inhale through your nose. So you imagine you're blowing out through a straw. It's a little quieter. I find the S breath, maybe it's just like my, kind of like Pavlov's dogs. I've trained my brain to shut down and go into the sleep mode whenever I do that. But again, you can use this anytime. You can use it anytime you need to relax or calm yourself, but it's extremely powerful when you're laying in bed and you're trying to fall either asleep for the first time in the night or back to sleep. So that's my kind of in-bed triage. You need to fall asleep. Exhale longer than inhale, either through a straw or the sound S as you're exhaling. All right, so let's back up a little bit. You're not in bed yet. It's the evening hours. My first tip is a little assignment for you. I want you to discover when your second wind hour is. Okay, so what I mean by that is You undoubtedly have had the evening where at 7 o'clock or even at 5 o'clock, while you're trying to get dinner on the table, you're driving home from work, you're doing something, and you feel like, I'm never going to make it to bedtime. I'm so tired. And then when you finally do get in bed, you're wired, you're completely alert. So what happens? So Ayurveda, which is a sister science to yoga, they talk about different doshas or energies that we have. But one thing that I found about Ayurveda that rings very true for me is they say that for most people, 10 o'clock is the second wind hour. If you go to bed before 10 o'clock at night, you'll have an easier time falling asleep than after 10 o'clock. And I'm a person who believes we all have to kind of make things our own. So 10 o'clock may not be your exact hour, but your assignment is to figure out when it is for you. And your job is to get in bed before that time, preferably like a half an hour at least before that time. So look at your rhythms. Look at what's happening to you at the end of the day. And maybe you're doing dishes, you're cleaning, you're working on a project, you're reading a book, you're doing something, and you're taking care of the kids, you're doing something, and you for some reason push past. You soldier on through the complete exhaustion where you feel like you could fall over. You're doing all these things, you're getting everything done, and then at some point a shift happens and you aren't quite as tired anymore. Your job, the thing that can help you get a better night's rest is to find out what that time is. It's probably somewhere around 10 o'clock, and get yourself to bed before that if you can. If this is a problem for you falling asleep, that's where you know you might need to pay attention to this second wind issue. The other thing about a pre-bed routine is that movement right before bed can be helpful. And you've heard a lot of people say, when I exercise right before bed, I sleep really well. And other people say, it's the opposite for me. When I exercise right before bed, I'm all keyed up and I have a hard time falling asleep. It matters the movement you're doing before bed, because just like I told you earlier with the breath, some movement is alerting and kind of wakes you up and makes you feel energized, and some movement is really relaxing and calming for your nervous system. This month in the community class for Healthy Moving, it's what the community class is each month I offer a free class for everyone in the community. You get free access to it for a few days, and it's called the Nighttime Unwind class. This is my favorite pre-bed movement routine. It is extremely helpful for quieting the nervous system and preparing you to both fall asleep quickly and to stay asleep throughout the night, and then to wake up feeling rested in the morning. You can register for that completely free access for a few days at healthymoving.com/community class. I put a link for that above this video as well. But the theme this month for the community class is Nighttime Unwind. It's the movement I like to do right before bed to help facilitate sleep, because movement before bed can be helpful. It's just you need to be very careful about what kinds of movement you're doing so that you're doing the things that will help you get a good night's sleep. All right, the last area that I wanted to talk about that I hear a lot of people kind of neglect or not think too much about is what you're doing throughout the day. And there's really two things that we're either addressing throughout the day or we're potentially contributing to throughout the day that make our sleep not as healthy as possible. And when I say healthy, what I mean is that you fall asleep when you need to, you stay asleep, and you wake up feeling rested. For those of you who have kids, I want to talk about that in a moment, because I absolutely have kids that wake me up in the night, and I'm not to negate the fact that there's kids, but healthy sleep means that when you get up to tend to somebody, that you're able to fall back asleep and that you're not laying there for hours afterwards. So this is really about that as well. So what is happening throughout the day that's impacting your sleep? Number one, are you getting enough movement in your body to have optimal flow of blood, lymph, and electricity? And if you've been around me for any amount of time, you know I make a big distinction between movement and exercise. You could be getting exercise, but not enough movement to have a good flow of blood, lymph, and electricity. And how do you know this might be an issue for you and be impacting your sleep? Is that if the thing that's waking you up is physical discomfort. So your hip hurts, your shoulder hurts, your neck hurts, your back hurts, and then when you're laying there awake, you're having a hard time falling back asleep because of pain, then you know you might need to look at how you're moving throughout the day to support the fact that you might be able to sleep better. And a lot of people think of pain that they have at night and blame their mattress or their pillow or other things. And I'm not negating that those can be a part, but another huge factor is, what are you doing all day long that's impacting the tissues of your body, that's making potentially an issue that you become aware of when you're sleeping? This is everything I do in the Coaching and Challenge program. I definitely have movement practices like the Nighttime Unwind class in that library, in my library of classes, for when you can roll out your mat and do some self-care. But a huge issue that many of us are not thinking about is how we're moving throughout the day. Are we bending over in a way that's healthy? Are we getting out of our chairs in a way that's healthy? Are we moving? Can we do more to use more muscles as we're doing the tasks we have to do, whether that's working at a computer or taking care of your family or driving in the car? How can we integrate more movement so that our muscles are more active and more of our muscles are active as we're going about our life? And if you want more information on the Coaching and Challenge program, you can head to healthymoving.com/coaching. The other thing that's happening throughout the day that we potentially might not be thinking too much about that's impacting our sleep is not just our physical pain, our aches and pains in the body, but our stress level. There's a lot of research coming out about the impact of stress on sleep and things like anxiety and depression, that perhaps the fact that we're not getting enough sleep is creating. It's not that we're not getting sleep because we're depressed, but maybe the lack of sleep is creating the groundwork for the depression and the anxiety. So taking care of yourself throughout the day and your stress level throughout the day is very important for helping to ensure that you get good sleep at night. And you might know this is an issue for you if when you wake up in the night or when you have a hard time falling asleep at night, it's not that you're physically in pain, that you're physically hurting. It's that you are mentally churning, right? You're thinking, you're turning in your mind, you're thinking, did this conversation, what happened as a result of this conversation, or I have to do that thing, or whatever it is, but you're mentally churning, your head is churning. And just the same as for movement, your body can be a tool to help with your stress. So how you're moving and how you're taking little pockets of self-care throughout your day is extremely, extremely important for your health and well-being and for how you sleep at night. So again, that's the same stuff I work on in the Coaching and Challenge program. So healthymoving.com/coaching if you want more information on that. But we have to be very mindful of how we're moving throughout the day that supports our physical aches and pains or lessens our physical aches and pains and decreases our stress so that we can get the amount of rest we need so that we can fall asleep quickly. Whether you're trying to fall asleep quickly at the beginning of the night when you're going to bed, or whether it's because you woke up, send me a message if there's a specific question that you have related to it. All right, friends, I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for listening and for sharing. Bye-bye.